kind of, it obviously creates a dramatic sense of pessimism. So by contrast now, it is the rest of the world that is becoming more optimistic. And so this is, in a sense, is the main reason why I wrote this book, The Great Convergence, and what I'm going to speak about today, because quite remarkably, that while the 12% of the world which lives in the West are progressively, as you know, becoming more and more worried about the future, the 88% who live outside the West are actually becoming more and more optimistic about the world and about the future. And this is therefore by far the most optimistic book that I've written of all the earlier books that I have done. Now, so what I propose to do, in an effort to explain what is the thesis of the book, I'll do it in 3 parts. First part, I'll try to share with you some good news. I may actually drown you in good news, so that to make you understand why there's so much optimism now in the rest of the world. And then, of course, I mean, as you all know, the world is not a perfect place. There are challenges we face. I'll discuss some of the big challenges the world faces. And then I hope to end with giving a few remarkably simple prescriptions that we can follow to make the world a better place. And there are some incredibly easy, I think what's called in American discourse, low-hanging fruit out there that we can pick to make the world a better place. And it's a pity that it's not being picked, and that's why also why I wrote this book at this time. So let me begin with the good news. And you know, if you want to understand the good news, the best way to put it is that the world has never been better than it is today, in several dimensions. And so let me give you 2 or 3 concrete examples. Firstly, as you know, since the dawn of history, the number one thing that most societies have been concerned about are issues of war and peace. And throughout history, wars have killed millions and millions of people, destroyed societies, and we've always thought that there was an eternal feature of the human condition. But today, and it's amazing that it's going unnoticed, wars are becoming a sunset industry all over the world. The danger of a major interstate war is the lowest it has ever been. In fact, in very few places do you fear that war is going to break out in a big fashion. And so as a result of that, the number of people who are dying in conflict, again, is the lowest it's ever been since statistics have been kept. In my book, I quote two major sources. The first is Harvard professor Steven Pinker, who wrote a book recently called The Better Angels of Our Nature, and he provides some remarkable data. And what is significant about Steven Pinker's data, by the way, is he doesn't just say that less people are dying as a result of less conflicts. He's also saying there's less violence in human society today. And that is a remarkable shift and improvement in the human condition. So maybe as recently as the 1950s, 500,000 people who died in some kind of conflict or another. Today, barely 30,000 die in any kind of conflict in a year. Even though the population, as you know, has grown dramatically since the 1950s. So that's one very sharp drop that has happened. And if you travel through region after region, you can see that, with the exception of course of the Middle East and places like that, by and large, people in many regions are experiencing greater peace. And of course, the best place, incidentally, to describe where peace has come is Southeast Asia. You know, when I grew up, Southeast Asia was supposed to be the Balkans of Asia, and we experienced all kinds of conflicts, communist parties, internal insurgencies, war in Indochina, and now Southeast Asia is at peace. And maybe someday, I hope, Ken, you should encouraged a young PhD student in Cornell to write a thesis. Did Cornell University bring peace to Southeast Asia? And he may have, and I'll explain later why it may have. So that's one example how lives have improved. The second example, we've always been worried about global poverty, about people at the bottom, people who are starving and so on and so forth. And here too, something remarkable is happening. In the year 2000, when I was ambassador to the UN established something called the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs. And they set up several MDGs about education, health and everything. But one of the most important MDGs that they established was that we should strive for the halving of global poverty by 2015. 2015, by the way, is 2 years from now. And, the amazing thing is that while many of the MDGs will not be met because they were very ambitious goals, the halving of global poverty will be met and in fact will be exceeded. We have actually done a remarkable job in reducing global poverty. And of course, a lot of it, you can guess, is due to the success of China and India. I mean, China alone has lifted 600 million people out of absolute poverty as a result of its rapid growth. So we have done something remarkable there. And by the way, when you do that, the benefits percolate very widely. Just about 2 Sundays ago, when I arrived in New York, I happened to be turning on the television set, watching Farid Zakaria's show, who was the Bartels World Fellow last year. And he was interviewing Bill Gates. And so we asked Bill Gates, how do you see the future? And Bill Gates said, oh, I'm very optimistic. So Farid says, why? Why are you optimistic? He says, very simple. He says, in his work, and he's trying his best to help people who are very poor and suffering. He said, if I remember the statistic correctly, he said, Farid, as recently as 20 years ago, 20 million babies would die below the age of 5. 10 years ago, it went down to 12 million. Now it's down to 5 million. Now, why is this statistic important? This statistic is important because babies, as you know, are the most vulnerable citizens of any society. So when babies die, the ecosystem that is supposed to protect them is not working. But when babies begin to survive, it shows that the ecosystem has been created to protect these babies, whether it's hygiene, education, healthcare, whatever it is, it's improving. And so less babies are dying. And so that shows how we are, in a sense, reducing global poverty. And most remarkably, as you know, one of the most traditionally most conservative institutions are institutions in the intelligence agencies, and an organization like the National Intelligence Council, you can predict would be very conservative